Good evening and welcome to Chicago TARDIS 2020 virtual panel number, I don't know. And this one is Darkness Never Prevails, Finding Comfort and Value in Doctor Who. And I will be introducing your panel moderator in just a second. I am Stephen Warren Hill, your CT host. And as usual, I brought along my buddy Nick with me. Nick, say hi.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Happy to have you joining us with our second day of virtual Chicago TARDIS. I just wanted to pass on a housekeeping point, and that is for those of you who are looking to see what other panels may be going on still, go to chicagotardis2020.sketch.com and go and check that out. The real reason that I want to make sure to send you there is because you can also leave feedback on all of the panels. And we do ask you, even after the fact, you can go back and rate the panels that you had an opportunity to see earlier. You may just rate it, or you may just leave a comment. We appreciate both. We really would love to get some feedback about how our virtual convention has been going, and wanted to pass that back to you. So, Steve, back to you.
Okay, so Darkness Never Prevails. This was submitted as a panel idea to us by Mr. Gordon Domowski. And Gordon, I'm going to let you take it from here. Have a great panel.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Gordon Domowski. I am the organizer of the Chicago Doctor Who meetup, and welcome to Darkness Never Prevails, Finding Comfort and Value in Doctor Who. And what I'd like to do is to start, go around, have each panelist introduce themselves, but in a different way. I'll read off their names. From when I ask is, in the past few months, we've had, in the midst of lockdown, we've had live tweets and online meetups and group sessions and informal screenings and Big Finish. So I'd like to ask each panelist how they've engaged with Doctor Who in the past few months. And I'd like to start with esteemed author, Catherine Sullivan.
I'm Kathy Sullivan. I write essays. So I've got an essay in Kick Big Time Lords, a couple of essays in Children of Time, The Companions of Doctor Who, some in Outside In, and well, the Big Finish CDs didn't arrive until recently, so I haven't been listening to those lately. But I have been listening to the tweet-alongs and just got my copy of Adventures in Lockdown, which is basically a compilation of a lot of the things that happened in the tweet-alongs. So rereading that, that's fun again. And watching some episodes of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Catherine. I'd like to turn it over, same question over to Rob Levy.
Hi, I'm Rob Levy, and like Catherine over there in the corner square, I'm in Children of Time as well with Cosmic Press, and I do some stuff for needcoffee.com and Anglatopia. And once in a while, I'm on the Earth Station Who podcast. So hello. So yeah, I took advantage of this. You know, when they started doing the lockdown stuff online, I said, you know what, I'm going to just deep dive like I'm 15 again and go all in. So I've been randomly grabbing episodes of Doctor Who from where I've got them stored away, like closing my eyes, just grabbing an episode and throwing them in. It's been interesting because I haven't hit what people would call hits. So I've been rediscovering stories that people wouldn't necessarily think of wanting to watch again. And it's really been nice just to kind of have a distraction from the outside world.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Now I would like to turn it over and get comments from Stephen Pickering.
Oh, hi, Stephen Pickering. I'm not in anything but here. I'm here with you now, and I can't wait till next year when I can give you guys a hug. Just hugging people. I've been engaging with Doctor Who during all of this, mostly reaching into the classic stuff. Things that either haven't hit my consciousness in a while. I'm like, oh, I'll just pull that DVD out. I use the Pluto TV app, and they have a classic Doctor Who channel in there. Sometimes I'll just see what's on. Sometimes it's just the randomness of, oh, part of an episode is kind of fun. And also diving into some of the Big Finish stuff that I haven't had a chance to listen to yet. I will dive into there and see what, and they've got new stuff coming out, which is always fun to, so I've been sampling a lot of that.
Okay, and finally, before we move into the panel, Amber Radin.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm co-chair of Console Room, which is the Doctor Who convention in Minnesota. And that's really guided a lot of how I've been dealing with Doctor Who and interacting with Doctor Who during this pandemic while we've kind of been in lockdown. We decided as a convention committee really early on that we wanted to continue to engage with the community, the Doctor Who community that's really throughout the U.S. Because I think that's a really big part of what I love about these conventions, and what I love about Doctor Who is the people that love it too. And with convention after convention canceling, I think there was a really big sense of loss there. So early on, we decided to do a number of virtual panels that we've been doing. I think the first one was back in May, which feels forever ago now. But we've been doing those every few weeks, and then continuing to try and create more engagement opportunities so that we can stay connected. Because I think it can become a little isolating being at home. I don't mind being at home so much. I'm pretty introverted, so this is sort of a safe space for me. But I miss that connection a little bit. So that's guided a lot of my interaction with Doctor Who over the past several months.
Okay, thanks everyone. Before we proceed, someone did ask where you can get the Children Time book. I believe you can get that through Cosmic Press. Can anyone back that up?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
So Cosmic
the
Press for
got a
Children.
sale going on too.
Okay, thanks. So let's kick off with, I know for myself, even though I'm running a meetup with Zoom screenings and Zoom Big Finish parties, and one of the things that I've been engaging with is Big Finish, simply because I've seen most of the episodes because I've been showing them on a monthly basis, and audio has just been a little bit more of a challenge. But what I'd like to do is open it up to, we all like Doctor Who, but what is it about this moment right now? What is it about the show that we find particularly comforting? What is it, whether it's in terms of stories, characters, scenarios, what is it about the show that's bringing us at least some comfort and some relief?
In my case, it's the optimism of the show. I mean, yeah, there are usually some really dark episodes, but there's always hopefulness. And having Jodie starting off the lockdown with her talking about being in hiding from the Centaurs, and that was just a wonderful little clip right there. It just set it off perfectly for me.
I'll pick up a bit on what Amber mentioned as far as connections. To me, at the heart of Doctor Who is connectedness. How the people connect to each other, and not just because they're in the same adventure or in the same story or even in the same TARDIS, but how they connect to each other, how they relate to each other, how they become in the current TARDIS team a family, and a family of choice. How the Doctor reaches out from his or her nature of non-intervention to reach out to connect to people, to help them. The connectedness is just interwoven through Doctor Who. And in a time like this, where connectedness is such a chore and so difficult to get to, I find that very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It's okay. I kind of view Doctor Who to me as sort of like my comfort food on TV. So I agree. I think a big part of why it is that way, other than just it's fun. I mean, I think having like Kathy was saying, having that joy and that like wonder that I think that they have in a lot of the stories, even the dark ones, I think are really mostly positive because they don't ever give up hope. And I think that not giving up hope is really important. So like even some of the darker episodes, there's still I mean, usually a good ending. I know there's not always like good things that happen, but there's still that element of hope. And I think that hopefulness and that positivity is still is very comforting. It's like a warm hug while we're watching at home.
So I want to echo a lot of what they said, but at the same time, I really needed to see something where good triumphed over evil. I really needed that. I needed the positivity, the optimism, but I also, for me, watching Doctor Who is not only, it reminds me of, some of the things I've lost. So we don't have conventions. I can't go different places and see, thousands of people who I may not know who they are, but I see their faces every year. So it's a connection to that, which is some tenuous connection to the normal, but it's also a connection to what made me a fan of the show, but also it reminds me that Doctor Who is sort of like my go-to, much like she said, whenever things are kind of down. And it has a very sort of timelessness to it, in that it always makes you feel better than you were when you started watching it. And I think that's the key for it for me.
I also want to bring up Gordon's shirt.
Yep. If you all can see, this is the free promo for Radio Free Scaro. So Stephen Warren and Chris, you owe me, but it says intelligence and romance is greater than brute force and cynicism, which is from the infamous Matt Smith cold open. And I mean, like many of you, part of what appeals to me about the show is that it is a very optimistic show. In fact, one of the things I love about Jodie's Doctor is that she's maybe the first Doctor we've had in a while who's mostly about hope and optimism and who isn't angsty. It's not like she's, and I know there's been reflection to it in the past. And for me, it's also been the sense of discovery, especially with Big Finish and BritBox, because BritBox has allowed me to watch stories that I haven't really seen in a while. But it's also, but with Big Finish, because I love audio dramas and a lot of them I just haven't heard. I've got this whole pile on my tablet that I can listen through while I'm working or have a few hours. There's just something about the fact that Doctor Who can still surprise me. And that right now, what I'm kind of looking for is that sense of, it also has a sense of wonder, which I think is really, really missing. And I kind of wanted to, let's geek out a little bit. I kind of hinted at this at my last question, but as we're watching through this period, are there any particular Doctors, episodes, moments, lines, scenes, anything that like really struck you as, yeah, now that really resonates for me in a way that it hadn't before?
Oh, I've got printouts. You don't want to get me started on that. But I mean, I went back and watched Prisoner of the Jejune, a fugitive from the Jejune, and just having the Joe Doctor turn up, and the second she goes, "Hello, I'm the Doctor," it's like, "Whoa, this has a whole new, different meaning." I just love that whole episode now, and a lot of times with the Doctor, there are scenes I like a lot more than the entire episode, but there's so many good lines.
There's a thread in Doctor Who that I picked up on recently that kind of struck me in all of this was and yes, a lot of people die in Doctor Who. That happens a lot, but in general, there's a sense that if you listen and do the things you're supposed to do and follow directions and care for each other, you'll be okay. We'll be okay. We'll get through this. And that was a thread that really kind of resonated with me in this, that like, if we do the things we need to do and care for each other, we will be okay. And that really struck me in this. Seems like the people who die off are the people who are arrogant and just go off and do something, and that usually doesn't go well for them. So
yeah, there is something to be said too about just having this underlying theme of empathy, and throughout all the different incarnations of the Doctor, there is this concept of like listening and empathy and not standing on the sidelines and being involved, and that the power of the individual makes the whole better. That's kind of an underlying theme in a lot of some of this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff with the show that I never thought of in these terms before until all of this, and there's a pretty broad palette throughout the show. that I never sort of really realized completely just how much they went into it. It's not in the writer's book about, emphasize, compassion, kindness, and decency and acceptance. But there is that to a certain extent throughout the whole run of the show. And that's sort of one of the things I've picked up on it, that, from watching different episodes and things, that I'm like, and also this idea of respecting how other viewpoints are. They're very careful in some of the historical stories to say, well, from their point of view, so there's a lot of that too that I think is really kind of touched some nerves right now.
Mm-hmm. Amber, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'd really kind of echo that. I think a lot of those notes that all of you are touching on are things that have come out to me before, but they come out stronger now. It feels like they're, it just hits you. I've been watching a lot of, it's not Doctor Who, but like Walking Dead recently, because that's like my October show. And like, I look at that very differently now. But I think for Doctor Who, it's really sort of elevated that feeling of optimism and how we look at how the Doctor looks at the world. Because I think that's, to me, has been a very forward-looking, optimistic viewpoint. When you were talking, Stephen, I was thinking of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor too. I'm really bad with the episode names, but the one with the masks and the creepy children.
Yep. I know the line. I love that line.
When everybody lives, and I feel like those kinds of lines just kind of hit an extra chord right now, I think.
Mm-hmm. And the 12th Doctor saying, just be kind, trying to convince Missy, but that just be kind. That's just,
yeah. And it's not only that it's important, but it's how we survive. It's how we move forward. We need those things to rise above these situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are three lines that really hit home for me in my own reviewing. The first is from Day of the Doctor, when it's the scene where they're about to do the whole freezing Gallifrey, and the war general says, we'll have nothing, and Matt Smith Doctor says, you would have hope, and right now that is the one thing you don't have. I'm thinking of Capaldi's speech in the Zygon invasion, where he's talking about, what you do with all that pain? You hold it in your hand, you put it down, and you say that no one will ever have to feel like this again. And the third is from Father's Day, which is, it's a rough episode for me because I first saw it after my own father passed. But there's a line where Christopher Eccleston's Doctor is talking with a couple, and I think she's pregnant, and they're talking about being out in a taxi in Surrey at 2 a.m. And the Doctor says, a taxi in Surrey at 2 a.m., the adventure I can never have. And it seems like, and I often will get, I often deal, because I'm dealing with a lot of people who like Doctor Who, I get with a lot of people who sometimes see the show as more of a, without going to negativity, they're sometimes very critical of the show, and they feel the show's gone wrong. But I feel that, like, through these scenes, there's that emphasis of, it's not just about empathy, but about being active in it. That, one of the values of the show isn't just about kindness, but it's also about practicing it. And I kind of want to open up to, and I know the show talked about other values, things like rationality, science, as well as emotional values. What else, like right now, even if it's something that it's hard to articulate, what other, when you watch the show right now, what else is being kind of sparked in you? What kind of moves it from being just, oh, I'm going to watch it because I like Doctor Who, to, yeah, this really hits.
I'll throw in one, and I thought of it as you were saying that. It was during Matt Smith's regeneration, when he's regenerating into Capaldi, and he talks about how we all become different people, and that's okay. You have to remember who you were. But you have to move forward, but you have to remember who you were. And in Doctor Who, regeneration comes out of a tragedy. And we see a new rebirth that still has all of what has been lived before. We're kind of going through that. We're going through a tragedy. We will become new people out of this. When we hit a new normal, it won't be our old normal. We will be different. We will be changed people. We'll look the same. I'll probably look older, but we'll be different people. And we're on a path like that right now. We are sort of in our regeneration, if you will. We are becoming the people we are going to take forward out of this pandemic into whatever the world is when we emerge.
And I'm not sure if it comes across too well. I've got the one story where all stories in the end just make it a good one.
Love that.
Yeah, like, yeah, because that was a great line, and live the best life you can.
And I'd just like to let those who are viewing on Facebook and YouTube know, please leave your comments, your questions as we're moving along. We'll be more than happy to answer them as the panel goes on. So please don't be afraid of your questions for us or things that you'd like to suggest in terms of great moments. But I also, so first, thanks everyone for sharing. And I guess what I'd like to do is, I know that the show has come in to real criticism lately. And rather than go into the negativity, I guess, how do you, as a Who fan, respond to that? How do you, and I'm not talking in terms of counter arguments, but like, it sometimes for me feels like you just don't get it in terms of that level of fandom, where they see it as, it's more of the show is not doing what I want it to do. But I also, and for me, I always have to, because I'm dealing with a meetup, I always have to frame it in terms of, fandom is not this huge amorphous, it's not this structured thing. It's about respecting people where they are and understanding that, this isn't my job. I'm not a gatekeeper, I'm an ambassador. And that for me, it's about, I have to reflect the values that I've learned from the show and how I treat people. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm bad at it. And I guess what I'd like to, in the midst of all this negativity, not just fan negativity, but what's been happening, how have you striven to work the values of the show in your everyday life?
I think this to me brings up kind of like this is how I view a lot of fandom, really how I approach a lot of fandom, and honestly, a lot of how I've approached the pandemic, which in and of itself has had a lot of negativity, is to look for the silver lining. Like there's and give it some time and kind of adjust to it. Because like I know with some of the newer episodes and with Matt Smith, when I started watching Doctor Who, Matt Smith had been on, I think, for a year. I loved Tennant's Doctor. I wasn't really ready to say goodbye to Tennant's Doctor, and I got into Matt Smith, and I couldn't stand him. I love him now. It took me some time to make that adjustment and find what it was that I liked about Smith. Like with the 13th Doctor, I think some of the messages to me have felt a little on the nose. And while I appreciate messages about interacting with the environment positively and things like that, I love those, but it felt a little bit on the nose to me. But on rewatching it, there's always something that I'm able to find that I do really enjoy, which is why whenever somebody asks like what your favorite Doctor is, like they all have something good about them, and I think that's kind of a lesson that can be really taken into anything. Maybe it's a little bit miserable now, but what is the silver lining, and what is that positive thing that has come out of that you can focus on, rather than focusing on what it was that you didn't like about it. I think it's a little bit of a mindset shift in changing like what your expectations were, and focusing more on like what this is what I received. What positive can I take out of that?
I mean, for the whole run, the shows are some episodes I don't like as much as the others, but if I go back and look through it, it's like, oh, this has wonderful lines. Oh, I like the humor on this. And I mean, with the 13th Doctor's episode, I just like the way the whole fam interacts. Yes, it took me a while to get used to fam, but I just like the way they all interact with each other. And Graham and Ryan basically working out their relationship, and Yaz just basically trying to make sure everything works together. And it just kind of bothers me that some fans don't seem to see that the show is still the show. They're all the ones saying, "Oh my gosh, these social justice warriors!" Like, have you not watched the show? Is this way back with the Third Doctor? Was this way? It's always had environmental episodes and focusing on bureaucracy, and the writers bring their life experiences. So I mean, you got the whole episode about taxation because the writer at that time was being overtaxed by the British system. There's just, I've always just been able to go back and say, okay, well, what do I like about that episode? And I can always find a good line, a good scene, like, oh, the Doctor peeked around the corner this way. And
Yeah, and even, you know, in my own viewing of the show, like I recently got the Faceless Ones on DVD, the animated reconstruction, and I watched it, and I like Troughton, and I didn't really care for the Faceless Ones. It's not bad. I just think it's a four episode story in 6 episodes, but yet there's still that fun sense of discovery, and for me, it's I always see it as, you know, this isn't about. And I'd like to just open this up to the panel. Like, for me, it's about finding joy, any moment of joy, whether it's in a big finish audio. I was playing around on BritBox and I realized I hadn't seen Dragonfire in a while. And I'm not a big McCoy fan, but as I'm watching the story, I'm like, you know, this isn't the story I remember, but it's actually really good. And it's finding those moments of joy. So I want to open it up to, especially those who haven't spoken yet. How are you finding joy in the series?
Well, I'll chime in a bit. I obviously have spoken a bit, but I'll chime in anyway. But I don't have a lot of patience for the haters, if you will. I don't. Doctor Who has been on for a long time. There's a wide palette of stuff to watch and enjoy, and I sort of brought myself to the conclusion a while ago that I don't have to love everything, but everything should be loved. There's been a lot of time and effort and heart and soul and money put into these things, and someone should love them. So, like Time in the Ronnie, not my favorite episode by far. If you listen to my kids complain about how much I complain about it, but still, I have talked to people who love that episode, and my reaction is always, thank you. Thank you for loving that, because someone should. And that means it doesn't have to be me, but someone should. If there's something you don't find, Doctor Who has got so much to it. TV, audio, books, comics. If you're not enjoying what you're consuming right now, keep looking. You will find something that you will love, but don't take away from the other people who love what they're watching right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think for me, a lot of it is Doctor Who has always mirrored the times that it was written in. Always. I mean, you have these messages that are, you know, like Catherine said, have always permeated the show. So I almost go into it now not thinking of the mindset of the writers and the creators at the time, and just trying to look at it as just storytelling and escapism. And it is like still great. It works as, you know, contemporary drama and science fiction that, you know, mirrors our society and our world, but it also is just fun and goofy and great. And, you know, people in lots of fandoms don't like different things about other things. The dialogues that people have about episodes like the Gunfighters or Dragonfire or Meglos. Those are what makes us all fans. And I love that, you know. I really have enjoyed the fact that during this whole break, I've been able to actually have conversations with people about Doctor Who much more than I ever normally have. And that's been great. People are talking about it, people are interested in it, and they want to have something that makes them feel good. And I think at the end of the day, it makes you feel good and you like it. So that sounds like a PBS drive, but there you go.
No, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just to go off of that. I think one of the things to me that it's not even just the joy. The joy is a big part of it for me, I think. I think there's always something to be joyful about in those. But I think one of the things that resonates with me the most, even beyond that, is just the real human emotion and how you see the characters interacting with real things and feeling that. We talked about connection a little bit, but like feeling that connection with them. And that brings it's not always like a joyful interaction, but I think just seeing that sort of real connection brings its own sense of joy to me as when I'm watching too.
Right. And like for me, what I love about the show is that every episode is somebody's favorite, somebody's most favorite, somebody's least favorite, and most people's meh. And I'm one of the few people who think Fear Her actually isn't that bad. That if you rework some of the script, you actually have a really powerful story. Or that if Matt Smith, if season 6, Matt Smith's second season hadn't been a split season, we'd be talking about it with a lot more respect. And a lot of people would like it more because I think it would have worked better as a full season. But I also think of it as, this is, for me, finding value in Doctor Who is that one of the great things about Doctor Who is also its diversity. And I know for a small segment of fandom, that's a dirty word. But one of the things that I too am a writer. And I have books on Amazon, but I learned a lot about story structure and telling different types of stories from Doctor Who. I also learned, I was fortunate enough as part of the meetup to put on 2 Doctor Who panels at C2E2. And panelists, I had a 5-time Hugo Award winner, someone who is, I think she was a former board member, former president of Chicago Nerd Social Club. She's now, I believe, volunteer head for the Lighthouse Foundation. One of my best friends who's a cosplayer, a fellow Chicago TARDIS staff person, someone who ran the meetup before I did, and a singer, songwriter, belly dancer. There's something that's, high school Doctor Who fan me would look at adult me and go, how did you do all that? As well as all the other work I did. But a lot of what the show brought to me was the show allowed me to aspire to be like the Doctor. And I'm just kind of thinking from the Timeless Child. I think it was Rachel Montgomery who made the point that when you make the Doctor, that she felt that the Doctor was made godlike. And what I realized as she was speaking is that, the great thing about the Doctor is he's an aspirational character. And that to me is what brings me joy and comfort, is that I don't have 2 hearts. I'm not going to regenerate. I don't have a time machine. And I just want to open this up to the panel. But there's something about the character being really smart, clever, and able to improvise. He's like MacGyver before there was a MacGyver. And I really think he's a very kind of aspirational, ideal character. So I'd like to turn it over to you. What, do you find yourself in the same position?
Yeah, the thing I've always liked about the Doctor is that the first resource is not violence. They always try to figure out a way of talking to an alien or trying to find another way. And it's just aspirational, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the term godlike to refer to the Doctor, because I think the Doctor is flawed in some pretty big ways. But it's still somebody that I would look. I think he's a good, or she, depending on which one it is. But I think they're a good leader, and they're a good at motivating people to see that leadership and that motivation in themselves, which I think in that way makes them really aspirational. And I think the flaws too help, because it's by not being perfect, we're better able to relate to them, and I think be able to make that connection and figure out how can we bring some of those ideals into our own lives.
Okay, let me add to that question, because we just had something from one of our viewers. Let me add to that question. Would it be accurate to say that Doctor Who gives us something we can aspire to, but also points out our faults as human beings?
I think so. I mean, an average episode of Doctor Who is greatly reliant on someone, usually a companion, making poor decisions, and, or the Doctor sometimes making poor decisions. And there's a certain aspect of patience. And although sometimes when the Doctor loses patience, you learn from that too. But there is a certain thing to be said about, patience, just calm down. It's going to be fine. We'll take care of it. That is, I think, really great and universal, and gives us something to aspire to, because the Doctor at his core, or her core, really is a character unlike any other character that we've had before, in that the Doctor is flawed. The Doctor has elements to the character that are not, black and white. There's some gray in there. And I think it really does a nice job of representing how people are, but also what people need to be. So with the Doctor, you get people at various stages of development, through an episode. They may start off here, but by the end, we get, at some point, you get Colin Baker's Doctor saying, talking about Lytton, how he's never misjudged a person so much in his life, things like that. There are these little moments of the show where you learn about the concept of mistakes and retribution and forgiveness. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that was something that Rory yelled at the Doctor for, basically making Amy aspire to be like him at that point. Because in The Beast Below, it wasn't the Doctor who came up with the solution, it was Amy. Because she realized the connection between that beast and the Doctor, and how they could be influenced by the tears of a child. So all those flaws actually add up to something good too.
Yeah, I don't think of the Doctor as being godlike. I really don't. The Doctor is definitely flawed. I mean, in the Rose episode, it's Rose who saves it, because the Doctor is basically paralyzed by what he has gone through, to the point where he is completely inactive. And I think about the Daleks episode, where the Doctor, out of his own curiosity and arrogance, endangers the lives of everyone with him. And it's purely he sabotages his own ship just out of his own curiosity and his arrogance that he's going to get through it. But what's important, and so I wouldn't aspire to perfection, but what's great, the Doctor learns. They learn. And that I would aspire to learn from our mistakes and to become better from them, and to learn how to reach people in ways, because everybody's a little different. So you learn how to connect to them in a way that really reaches them. That's something that the Doctor does. And that's a thing I think that's well worth aspiring to.
Yeah, I like Stephen and Rob, both of you brought up mistakes, because that to me, in real life too, is a really, really important message. I think that we probably should be sharing more, that it is okay to make mistakes, and you can learn from those and move on. And I think we see that quite a lot with the Doctor.
I think it also helps too that you've had a show with almost 6 decades now, where there's been enough character development that you see all these different elements in the character, whereas other TV shows, after 5 or 6 years, the lead character is more or less the same. But you can trace the evolution of the Doctor from incarnation to incarnation, and you can find these different moments where different things affected the character different ways. And I think that really sort of touches upon some aspects of being human that other shows can't do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I love about Doctor Who so much. And I don't mean to like fangirl, I guess, a little bit over here, but like it is to me like one of the concept of Doctor Who, and that you can regenerate between different doctors, and they can be, I mean, they're the same person, but that they are still so different and tackle different things in different ways is genius. I love this, that there is such a diversity in how we approach the Doctor through all of the regenerations. I feel like a lot of what we're talking on kind of touches on that. When you, Stephen, I think you mentioned regeneration and how we're all kind of going through regeneration. This is like the perfect representation, I think, of change. And it is my favorite thing about this show. It will probably always be my favorite thing about this show.
Okay.
And one that I think I just really quickly, it's a Pertwee episode where he was talking to Sarah Jane, and the way he was phrasing it was just like something Matt Smith would say, and it hit me. I was like, oh, I just love those threads.
Okay. I hate to cut people short, but we are coming up on the end of our hour. So what I'd like to do is any short parting final thoughts to kind of bring the panel to the end. Let me open up to any final thoughts, insights.
I'll throw out one of the truisms of Doctor Who is, while we're all stuck inside way too much, Doctor Who tells us that our inside can be as big as we need it to be with our imagination.
That's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of anything at the moment other than just it's something to enjoy. I'm looking forward to see what the holiday episode is going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
And how the Doctor, because Matt Smith's Doctor couldn't handle being stuck on one planet for a few days. How's the Doctor handling being stuck in a prison? It's going to be interesting.
Okay, anyone else?
I think that at its core, what's the use of being grown up if you can't act childish? So right now, as we're all stuck inside, freaking out about like who's within our orbit and who's wearing masks and not wearing masks, just remember that it's okay to be childish. It's okay to look at the world with wonder. And it's okay to just sort of get lost in something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I'll just bring this to an end by saying that, like Tom Baker in The Ark in Space, I do believe that Homo sapiens is an indomitable species, and that we are totally capable and ready to outsit eternity. And with that, I'd like to bring the panel to the close. I'd like to thank Stephen, Amber, Catherine, and Rob for their time. I really appreciate it. If we didn't get your question, leave it on YouTube or Facebook. We'll follow up. My name is Gordon Domowski from Chicago Doctor Who Meetup. You're all welcome to join us on the 10th for our social and on the 20th for our Big Finish presentation of Chimes of Midnight. Find us on Facebook, Meetup, and Patreon, Twitter @Who Meetup. Thank you once again for attending our panel. Thank you at home for viewing. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Stephen.
All right. Thank you so much, Gordon. I told Gordon this privately, and I'm going to share it with everybody publicly. I told Gordon that his was my favorite panel idea submitted for this convention, because this is exactly the panel that we needed and wanted. So one more time, thank you, Gordon, and all of your panelists for this. Coming up next, we have our virtual masquerade. One of the highlights of every Chicago TARDIS is the masquerade, and that one is a special event that goes live at 6 o'clock Central Time, all times GMT -6. Nick,
Yes,
do you
I'm
have
here.
anything to share with us?
Yeah, no worries. You can keep screaming my name. It's all good, Steve. So actually just wanted to remind people to check out the Chicago TARDIS Facebook page for some of the artists and fan clubs and other people who do and participate in our vendor rooms and things like that. And give those people some support. Follow the links there so that you can support some of our local artists and some of our fan artists to buy some holiday gifts coming up here. And we just want to make sure that they're still around to join us for next year as well. So, and that's very important to us. That's the main thing. I also want to remind people to please leave comments for this panel and other panels on sketch.com. So make sure you go to chicagotardis2020.sketch.com. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, we're drawing near the end of our virtual convention. After the masquerade, we just have a couple more panels after that. Actually, one more panel after that, and that is the Doctor in Pandemics and Doctor Who. So that would be like the partner to this one as the type of panel that we need for this year, to analyze how Doctor Who has handled pandemics and how we treat it in the time of a pandemic. And then after that, it's going to be our goodbye at 8 o'clock, and we won't take up a lot of your time then, but we do want to get the chance to say goodbye. Right now, I'm going to say goodbye to Stephen, Amber, Kathy, Rob, and Gordon. Thank you again for a great panel. Thanks, Nick, for co-hosting with me, and until the masquerade starts, and then we come back for pandemics. Onward, Chicago TARDIS.